Adobe Photoshop 4 includes new features that help you work more efficiently and creatively. Here you'll see how Photoshop's new features were used to create this artwork for the World Wide Web. To help you lay out your artwork, Photoshop now includes grids and guides. You can use grids to precisely align objects. The guides and grid preferences let you control color, style, and the size of the grid. By default, tools automatically snap to the grid when you move them close to it. Now I'll fill the selection with one of Photoshop's new predefined gradients. You can also create your own gradients using the gradient editor. You define the starting and ending colors of the gradient. You can even add intermediate colors. Another feature of the gradient editor is the transparency option. Here I'll set the opacity of the starting color to 50% and the opacity of the ending color to 25%. The gradual fade in transparency makes the gradient blend smoothly into the image below. One of the greatest time-saving tools in Photoshop 4 is the new Actions palette. The Actions palette lets you automate tasks by recording a series of Photoshop commands and then playing them back. When you create a new action, Photoshop begins recording the commands and dialog box settings you use. Here I'll use the image size, hue saturation, and unsharp mask commands. Notice that after each command is used, Photoshop adds it to the Actions palette. To stop an action, pause the recording and make any necessary adjustments. You can also add a breakpoint that will pause an action during playback to let you enter different dialog box settings than you recorded. Once you've finished recording, you simply play the action, and Photoshop automatically applies all the commands in the action to your artwork. Notice that when the action hits the breakpoint at hue saturation, Photoshop opens the dialog box, so I can colorize this globe with a different hue than I recorded for the bee. As you can see, the Actions palette can free you from the tedium of reproducing techniques time and again. For a fully automated production environment, you can even use the Batch feature to process entire folders of images. Photoshop 4 includes many new features that make compositing images easier than ever. For example, combining images from different files automatically creates a new layer for each new image. And even though the images are on different layers, you can now transform them simultaneously by first linking the layers together. Photoshop 4's numeric transform command lets you move, scale, rotate, and skew an image in one step. Now I'll use guides to align the images. You place vertical and horizontal guides on your artwork by dragging them from the rulers. As you move an image near the guide, Photoshop snaps it to the guide, making alignment a simple task. If you want to transform images interactively, you can use the new Free Transform command. This command lets you move, scale, rotate, skew, and distort images by dragging. Once you've finalized a stack of layers, you can use the new Merge Down command to flatten just those layers and reduce the file size. Here I'm merging the bee, earth, and star and moon layers into a single layer. You can also merge any linked layers into a single layer using the Merge Linked command. Another new feature in Photoshop 4 is the Type Mask tool. I'm going to use this tool to create textured type. The Type Mask tool creates a selection in the shape of type. In Photoshop 4, if you have an active selection when you add a layer mask, the image on the layer is automatically clipped to the selection. The final image for this artwork, this globe, needs some color adjustments. You can now make non-destructive color adjustments using the new Adjustment Layers feature. These are the same color and tonal adjustments you may be familiar with, but now they can be applied on a separate layer before being applied to the image. Here I'm adjusting the contrast of the image using a Levels adjustment layer. You'll notice that highlighted areas are now overexposed. By painting on the adjustment layer, I can keep the adjustment from affecting these areas and bring them back into the image. To help with detailed work like this, you can use the new Navigator palette to zoom in and out of different image areas. In a magnified view, the Navigator's proxy window lets you quickly focus on different parts of the image without scrolling. For multiple color adjustments, you can stack different types of adjustment layers to get exactly the tonal and color corrections you want. If you don't like an adjustment, you can continue to fine-tune it, temporarily hide it, or discard it altogether, all without affecting the image underneath. Once you've finished color correcting, you merge the adjustment layers with the image layer, applying the corrections to the image itself. Now that you've seen how you can use some of Photoshop's new features, you're ready to experiment on your own. For more details on each of these features, see the user guide.